The following account was found in a letter dated July 3rd, 1892, tucked inside a salt-stained envelope in an old sailor's chest. The chest washed ashore near the Azores after the wreck of the Mariner's Rest. The handwriting was cramped and careful, as if the writer knew it might be the last thing he ever set down. The sea was like a wall that night. I have known storms, but this was something else. The wind did not simply blow, it tore. It clawed the sails to rags and snapped the masts like dry twigs. The waves were taller than houses. They rose up black and shining and fell with such force that the whole ship shook as if it were a child's toy. Men were shouting, but the storm shouted louder. Ropes snapped, lanterns went dark, and the deck turned into a river of cold water and broken wood. I saw Tom Berrigan swept from the rail. I saw the captain with both hands on the wheel, his eyes open wide. And then there was a crack like the world breaking, and he was gone too. I do not remember going overboard. I remember only a terrible cold, as if I had fallen straight into the sky itself. Up and down lost their meaning. There was only blackness and white foam, and the sound of everything breaking at once. When I woke, the storm had gone. The sea was smooth, too smooth. The sky was full of stars and silence. There were no bodies, no wreckage, only me. John Roberts, late of the Mariner's Rest. Transcribed from a letter held in the archives of the Lisbon Maritime Office, 1892. When the storm ended, the sea forgot to move. It lay as flat as polished glass, spread to every horizon, holding the moon and stars upon its surface like a great silver plate. Not a ripple stirred, not a breeze passed. The world looked as though it had been paused between one breath and the next. John Roberts sat alone in a half-broken lifeboat, his fingers hooked loosely over the salt-whitened wood. The boat creaked now and then, as if to remind him it still existed, but the water beneath it made no sound at all. He had expected the aftermath to roar with noise. The groan of sinking timbers, the cries of other survivors, the long growl of the storm dying away. Instead, there was nothing. The sea, which had screamed at him all night, had fallen into a silence so deep it felt like a kind of spell. John lifted his head and looked around. No sails, no floating barrels, no planks. The Mariner's Rest had vanished as completely as if the ocean had swallowed it whole and licked its lips clean afterward. He flexed his hands. The ropes had left red burns along his palms, and one knuckle was split, the blood already dried into a dark line. His clothes clung to him, heavy with salt, and his hair was stiff with dried spray. He was alive, though he was not entirely sure how. "Well then," he said aloud, his voice rough from shouting at the wind hours before. "We're not finished yet, are we?" His words did not carry. They slipped into the open air and fell into the still water, disappearing without echo. John listened. No gulls called. No distant waves crashed against unseen rocks. The quiet was so complete that it seemed to rest on his shoulders like an invisible weight. He turned slowly, scanning the horizon. It was the same in every direction, a low band of soft blue where the sky met the sea, and above it a ceiling of stars. It was beautiful in the way that some graveyards are beautiful, too still, too perfect, making the living feel like intruders. He thought of the men who had been with him only hours before. They had had families, debts, stories they liked to tell twice over. Now they were gone, and the sea looked innocent, as if it had never heard a single human name. He swallowed hard. "You've taken all of them," he said softly. "Is that not enough for you?" No answer came, of course. The ocean did not apologize. It never had. He shifted, feeling the wood nudge gently beneath him. The stars shone so brightly that he could see his own face in the water, a pale oval surrounded by the dark blur of his hair and beard. He looked older than he remembered feeling. The lines around his eyes, etched there by years of squinting into wind and spray, seemed deeper now. For a while, he simply stared at himself. Then something changed. At first, he thought it was his imagination. The reflections seemed to brighten, just slightly, as if the moon had decided to shine a little harder beneath him. But then he noticed that the light did not match the sky. It came from deeper down, past his own face, past the mirrored stars. There, far below, a small glow flickered. It looked like a lantern someone had set under the water, burning quietly in the dark. It pulsed once, then again, not in a sharp flash, but in a slow, gentle throb, like the beating of a great heart. John leaned forward, careful not to rock the boat too much. His breath came shallowly. What in God's name? The glow shifted. It did not rise quickly or rush toward him in any frightening way. It simply drifted a little closer, enough that he could see that it was not one light, but several, clustered together and moving in harmony. As he watched, another sensation came, a faint sound at the very edge of his hearing. It was low and steady, like the hum of a distant bell ringing somewhere deep beneath the surface. The sound traveled up through the hull of the boat and into his bones. It was not loud enough for the ear alone. It was the sort of sound a man felt first in his chest. John pressed his hand against the side of the boat. The wood was cool. The hum ran up his arm, a soft vibration that made his skin prickle. He cleared his throat and spoke, feeling a little foolish. "Can you hear me?" The hum grew just a little stronger. The light brightened in answer. For a long, breathless moment, man and sea regarded one another. The ocean had always been something to work upon, to fear, to endure. Never, in all his years, had John imagined it could be something that listened. He felt his fear loosen, strand by strand. Whatever this was, it did not feel cruel. It felt aware, curious almost. "If you can hear me," he said more softly now, "then you know I'm alone." The glowing cluster shivered, and the water around his boat made the slightest ripple, the first movement he had seen since waking. It was as if the sea had sighed. The moon crept slowly toward the western edge of the world, and time slipped along with it. John stayed where he was, leaning over the side, eyes fixed upon that pulsing light. Once or twice, he thought he saw a shape inside it, a curve like a shoulder, the brief suggestion of a hand. Each time, the vision faded before he could be sure. At last, thin color began to bleed into the eastern sky. Dawn was coming, soft and gray. As it did, the hum grew fainter and the light retreated into the dark. "Wait," John whispered, surprising himself with the urgency in his own voice. "Don't go." but the glow melted away, deeper and deeper, until the sea was only silver again, as smooth and silent as before. John sat back slowly, his spine aching, his eyes dry and stinging. The silence closed around him once more, but it no longer felt empty, not entirely. Something had been there, something intelligent, something gentle and strange. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding and looked at his wet hand. It trembled, but not from cold. "Thank you," he said to the water, not knowing why he was grateful, only that he was. He stretched out along the bottom of the boat, one arm tucked under his head, and watched the sky grow lighter. The last star winked out. The sea remained smooth, pretending it was nothing more than a plane of quiet light. As sleep crept over him at last, he dreamed not of lightning or sinking ships, but of a soft glow rising slowly through endless blue, patient and alive, waiting for him to open his eyes again. He did not yet know that the sea had begun to answer him. He did not yet know that, beneath that polished mirror of water, someone was watching and waiting for him too. When John Roberts awoke, the sun stood low and pale in the sky, as if unsure of its place after so strange a night. The sea still lay quiet, too quiet, but its silver surface was touched now by a faint warmth, a shimmer that did not belong to storm or sorrow. John sat up slowly. His muscles ached from sleeping, curled in the bottom of the boat, and his throat was dry. He cupped a handful of water to rinse the salt from his lips, but did not drink. Even in his thirst, he knew better than to trust the sea. He glanced over the side. The depths glowed faintly, their blue-green color softer than he remembered the day before. The memory of the pulsing light came back to him all at once, as clear as the morning sky. He rubbed his hands together. "You weren't a dream," he murmured. "I felt you." He waited. The ocean remained perfectly still. But then, just as he began to think the night had been nothing more than a lonely man's trick of imagination, a ripple broke the surface, small, delicate, like a fingertip brushing the water from below. John leaned forward. "Are you there?" he whispered. The ripple widened. The sunlight bent across it like a sheet of glass turning in gentle hands. And from beneath that wavering glow, the light he had seen last night returned, brighter now, clearer, like the flame of a lantern held just beneath the water. He held his breath. The light rose, slowly, softly, patiently. It was not the frantic motion of a fish, nor the drifting of a jelly. It moved with purpose, as though it belonged to something that wanted to be seen. John found himself unable to blink. The glow changed shape, stretched tall, then narrowed, then curved like the arc of a shoulder. Still, the water held its smooth mirror-like skin, reflecting the sky, even as something beneath pushed upward. Then John saw her. At first, only the faint outline of a face, pale, luminous, framed in long hair that drifted as though caught in a gentle current. The strands floated around her like gold spun from sunlight and silk, shimmering beneath the water. Her eyes opened. They were bright, impossibly bright, as though they held a piece of the dawn inside them. They looked up at him, unblinking, calm, ancient in their knowing. She did not thrash for breath. She did not rise for air. She simply floated there, gazing at him from the other side of the water's shine. John's breath caught in his throat. His hands trembled on the rim of the boat. "Who are you?" he whispered. The woman beneath the sea tilted her head ever so slightly, as if listening. The surface did not break. She remained below it, perfectly separated from him by only a sheet of shining water. For a moment, John feared she might slip away as the light had the night before. He reached out his hand without thinking, his fingers hovering just above her image. The surface rippled, not harshly, but like a sigh. The woman's outline trembled and reformed, closer now, her eyes fixed on his. He felt foolish speaking to the water, but something in her gaze invited honesty. "I'm John," he said softly. "John Roberts." The woman blinked once, slowly, almost thoughtfully. Then the hum returned. It rose through the deep, the same low, steady tone from the night before, carried not by air, but through water, wood, and bone. The lifeboat gently vibrated. The hum was neither loud nor frightening. It was warm, like the memory of a lullaby hummed long ago by someone who loved him. The woman's lips did not move, but she lifted one hand. Her fingers glowed faintly, lit from within. She pressed her palm to the underside of the water's mirror. The surface did not break. It bent beneath her touch, shimmering like warm glass. John felt something in his chest. A pull, gentle but certain, like a tide turning. He laid his hand flat against the water, aligning it with hers. A warmth spread through the cold surface, as though she had lent him a bit of her light. For the first time in many years, he felt seen, truly seen. He whispered, "Are you alone too?" The hum deepened. An answer, or something close enough to one that his heart understood, even if his mind did not. Then the water stilled again. The glow softened. The woman drifted backward, her form growing fainter in the deep. "No. Wait, please," John murmured. But she did not vanish this time. She merely sank a little deeper, her eyes never leaving his, as though inviting him to follow. Not now, not yet, but when he was ready. The surface returned to its perfect shining calm. John sat back, heart pounding softly, the warmth of her light still lingering in his palm. He looked at the horizon, then at the sea that had turned strange and gentle, and he whispered, not in fear now, but in wonder, "What are you trying to show me?" He did not yet know her name, nor the world she came from. He did not yet know she had been waiting for him. But the sea had begun to answer, and the woman beneath the mirror would rise again. John Roberts did not know how long he slept after she drifted away. Dreams pulled him down softly, like hands smoothing a blanket over a tired child. When he finally woke, the sun was high, warm on his face. His first thought was of her, the pale light, the drifting golden hair, the way her hand had pressed against the underside of the water and filled his palm with warmth. He sat up quickly and leaned over the side of the boat. The sea, faithful to its strange new nature, lay still and shining. It reflected the clouds above so perfectly that he felt as though he peered into another sky rather than the water beneath. "Are you there?" he asked softly. There was no answer, not at first. The silence made him feel foolish, like a man calling out to a dream. But then a ripple curved through the water, gentle and precise, like a fingertip drawing a line. John's breath caught. "You heard me." A pale glow bloomed far below. It rose slowly through the blue, softening the deeper it drifted upward, like dawn spreading through fog. Then the glow took shape, the smooth outline of a face, a hand, the trail of long golden hair. She came nearer than ever before, close enough that John could see the delicate strands floating around her like threads of sunlight. Close enough that her eyes, bright, calm, impossibly deep, held his gaze without wavering. He whispered, "I don't understand any of this." The woman blinked gently, as though she understood more than he knew. She lifted her hand again to the mirror-like surface. The water bent beneath her touch, shimmering around her fingers. John placed his own hand where hers pressed from below. Warmth spread through his skin again, stronger this time, traveling up his arm and settling in his chest. Then she moved her hand sideways, not pulling away, but guiding him. The water parted. Not dramatically, not like a wave breaking. It folded open softly, as though the sea had become a curtain made of light. John stared. "You want me to come?" Her eyes brightened with a soft, encouraging glow. She drifted backward, leading him with the slow grace of someone who knows she is being followed. John hesitated only once. He placed one leg over the rim of the boat, then another. The water rose to meet him, not cold, not biting, but warm as breath. It held him up for a moment, supporting him like gentle arms. Then he sank beneath the surface, but he did not drown. The panic rose to his throat, but before it could break him, her hand touched his cheek, light as a sigh. The warmth deepened, spreading through his head, his lungs, his chest. He tried to breathe and found, to his amazement, that he could. It was like inhaling the softest air, cool and easy. She floated before him now, no longer separated by the surface. Her hair drifted around her like golden kelp. Her skin glowed faintly, lit from within. She took his hands in hers and guided him deeper. John opened his eyes fully. For the first time in his life, he saw the world beneath the sea as a place meant to be entered, not feared. The light followed her, wrapped around her, responded to her, as though the water itself adored her presence. They drifted past curtains of shimmering kelp that moved without the push of any current. Tiny fish swam around them in spirals, their scales flashing like beads of silver thread. Coral rose from the seabed in great shapes, towers, bridges, arches, glowing softly with colors he could not name. John reached out, touched a tall stalk of coral. It chimed faintly, like a glass bell. He laughed, a small, startled sound, and the woman smiled. It was a gentle smile, one that made her look younger than the sea around her, as though she had waited centuries to show someone this place. They passed through a garden of pale, ribbon-like tendrils that brushed against John's arms with feather-soft touches. Farther ahead, a huge manta glided by, its body shimmering with lines of bioluminescent blue. It hummed as it passed, a sound that matched the deep tone John had heard the night before. "Was that you?" he whispered through the water. "Were you calling me?" She tilted her head, thoughtful, and then nodded once. John felt his heart swell. He did not know her name yet, nor why she had chosen him, but the truth hovered between them like a shared breath. She had been waiting. He followed her into a clearing of pale sand where the sunlight filtered down in ribbons. She reached out, touched his cheek again, then placed his hand over her heart. Her glow brightened. John whispered, "You're alive, more alive than anything I've ever seen." And she, this woman of the deep, closed her eyes and rested her forehead gently against his, only quiet, innocent closeness. A connection as soft as a kiss that had not yet been given, but already lived in both their hearts. He did not yet know what her name was. He did not yet know the dangers that would come. He knew only that he wanted to see more, and she wanted him to follow. John Roberts had never believed the sea could hold a heart. Yet as he drifted beside the glowing woman, her hair floating like strands of sunlight, her eyes soft as dawn, he felt the truth of it. The ocean was alive, and she was its daughter. She led him through forests of coral shaped like twisted cathedrals. She showed him schools of silver fish that swam in perfect circles, forming living halos around them. She rested her hand lightly against his chest, and he breathed the water as easily as air, the magic flowing from her into him with gentle warmth. Every time she touched him, his fear fell away. Every time he looked at her, the silence of the sea felt less lonely. He began to call her Maris, a name soft enough to fit her presence, warm enough to fit his heart. She did not correct him. When he spoke it underwater, she smiled in a way that made the light around her brighten, as though the sea itself approved. Days passed, or perhaps weeks. Time moved differently in her world. They swam through valleys of blue light and across sands that glowed at every footstep. John showed her how to laugh, shaping bubbles with his hands, chasing after darting fish, until she pressed her forehead to his in delighted affection. She showed him the innocence of her world, the way sea turtles whispered to each other, the way giant manta rays sang like low, distant violins, the way the tides carried messages older than human memory. Their closeness grew naturally, tenderly, like vines finding each other in the dark. But the sea, for all its calm beauty, carried dangers too. Not all creatures loved Maris the way John did. One evening, if evening existed beneath the waves at all, the water grew darker, colder. Maris tensed, her glow dimming to a protective hue. John felt the shift at once. Something was coming. The first shadow circled them in silence. Then another. Sharks. Huge, grey, moving with purpose. Maris pulled John behind her, her lights swelling. The sharks darted closer, eyes black as coal. John reached instinctively for Maris's hand and felt magic surge through him, warm and fierce. When the first shark lunged, John struck it with a force that shocked even him. An underwater blow guided by Maris's power. The creature turned aside, dazed. Another swept in from below, but Maris moved like lightning, her glow bursting into a shimmering wave that pushed the predator away. Still they came, more shapes rising from the gloom. John's heart thundered. He had never fought underwater, never fought anything like this. But Maris placed both her hands over his, and in that touch, he felt strength swell inside him, light running through his limbs, magic sparking in his fingertips. Together, John whispered, the word bubbling into the current. They fought as one. The shark circled, but every strike from John carried the soft, golden power Maris had given him. She turned the water into a shield of light, sending the creatures fleeing into the deep. Just when they thought the danger was past, a darker shadow rose. An orca, massive and hungry, its jaws wide enough to swallow them whole. Maris cried out, not in fear, but in challenge. Her glow turned dazzling white, and John grasped her hand, letting the magic flow freely. Together, they pushed against the water itself, sending a great shimmering pulse outward. The orca shuddered, confused by the brilliance. Then, slowly, it bowed its head and drifted away, its great body disappearing into the quiet blue. John held Maris close, breathless despite the water filling his lungs so gently. She pressed her cheek to his, her forehead to his, her eyes shining with relief. They had survived. They had saved each other. And love, quiet and innocent until now, blossomed fully in that moment. They swam into a hidden cove the sea had carved from light and coral. They rested there, hands intertwined, their bodies close in the warm glow. Maris wrapped her arms around him, and John rested his head against her chest, hearing a soft music pulsing within her, a song that was part heartbeat, part tide. In time, Maris's glow deepened with a new warmth, one John felt even before he understood it. She pressed his hand gently to her abdomen, and the magic between them sparked like a tiny star beginning to form. Their love took root in the deepest waters, and from that love grew children, 3 at first, then more, born in shimmering spirals of light, their tiny fingers glowing, their hair waving like pale fire. They swam before they walked, laughed in bubbles, and shone brighter than any lantern the sea had ever known. The ocean accepted them as its own. The creatures bowed as they passed. Storms parted. The tides obeyed. John and Maris became something more than human and more than seaborn. They became deep-born, beings of 2 worlds' guardians, lovers, parents, heroes, immortal, held in the heart of the ocean, where time itself moved like a slow, forgiving tide. Their children grew tall, strong, radiant. They danced with dolphins, wrestled playful sharks, and chased orcas through canyons of coral. They learned to command the currents and sing to the whales. The sea had never known such joy. John often held Maris close, marveling that he had once feared this world. She would press her forehead to his and whisper through the currents, not in words, but in the tender pulse of her magic. You are home. You were always meant to be. And deep in his transformed heart, John knew it was true. But the world above had not forgotten him. And far in the future, explorers would come. Hundreds of years passed, though neither John Roberts nor Maris aged a day. Time moved differently in the deep, slow as drifting sand, soft as a lullaby. The world above forgot the story of the mariner's rest, forgot the man who vanished without a trace, forgot the light beneath the waves. But the sea did not forget. It held the memory like a pearl hidden in its darkest chambers. John and Maris lived among coral palaces carved by moonlight, their children grown into beings of wondrous power. These children, half human, half sea, could summon currents with a flick of their hands. They sang in tones that resonated through trenches and caverns, calling whales from miles away. Their hair glowed in the dark. Their eyes saw farther than the smallest fish and deeper than the oldest shark. The ocean creatures honored them. Storms avoided them. Even the tides themselves changed direction when they swam. They were no longer merely a family. They were a legend living inside the sea's beating heart. And then, One day, the world above stirred. Far above the quiet blue, a vessel of steel and glass plunged into the deep. It was not a wooden ship, as John once knew, but a long, shining machine made to survive the crushing weight of the ocean. Its propellers turned slowly, carefully, its lights cut through the dark like pale suns. Inside sat 3 deep-sea explorers, scientists in thick suits, their faces lit by the glow of their instruments. They came seeking new species, new secrets, new mysteries. But the sea had an older mystery waiting for them. As the sub descended past glowing kelp, past drifting curtains of plankton, past rock formations older than any kingdom, the crew began to feel watched. The sonar flickered, the lights dimmed, the ocean around them grew warmer, brighter. "What's that glow?" whispered one. "Is it a vent?" said another. "No vent shines gold," replied the captain softly. Then the water opened around them like a curtain drawn back by unseen hands. The explorers gasped. Before them stood a palace of living coral, spiraling upward like a cathedral carved from moonlit stone. Around it drifted shapes, tall, graceful, radiant. Their hair shimmered like fire underwater. Their skin glowed with gentle power. Their movements stirred the currents like dancers guiding wind. And at the center of them, all were 2 figures. A woman with golden hair flowing like sunbeams through water, and a man whose eyes still held the quiet determination of a sailor who had once survived the impossible. The explorers pressed their faces to the glass. John Roberts reached out one hand toward them, his palm open, calm. His eyes were kind, ancient, wise, and never once aged by time. Maris floated at his side, her glow warming the entire realm like a living sunrise. Their children encircled the sub, singing soft harmonic notes that vibrated through the metal walls and into the explorers' bones. The scientists trembled, not in fear, but in reverence. "What are they?" one whispered. "Not what," said the captain. "Who?" John's expression softened and he nodded at them through the glass, as if greeting visitors from another dream. Maris raised her hand and light bloomed outward, soft, golden, welcoming. Cameras rolled, instruments beeped wildly. But there was no language the explorers could use to explain what they saw. Not gods, not spirits, not illusions. A family, a home, a legend that had chosen to live forever beneath the waves. Maris and John drifted closer until their faces hovered inches from the sub's window. The glow around them pulsed in a gentle greeting, not a threat, not a warning, a blessing. One of the explorers whispered, "They're beautiful." Another whispered, "They're real." The captain whispered, "Let's not disturb them. Some miracles are meant to stay miracles." The sub remained only a moment longer before slowly rising back toward the light above, its crew forever changed. They would speak of what they saw for the rest of their lives, but no one on the surface would ever fully believe them. The ocean keeps its secrets, but it shares them with those who listen kindly. And far below, in the shimmering heart of the deep, John Roberts held Maris close as their children swam in spirals of glowing joy. They were not forgotten. They were not alone. They were the guardians of the Mirror Sea. They were love made limitless. They were the tide's eternal heartbeat, and there they would stay forever. And now, dear dreamer, let the tides fall quiet around you. You've journeyed through the mirror sea tonight. Now let yourself rest. May your breath settle like calm waves. May your thoughts drift in gentle currents. May your dreams be peaceful and kind. Good night, dreamer. May the sea hold you softly until morning.